In terms of a solution, Ehud, you seem to be talking more about a change in the power dynamic in Israel. Perhaps it's a coalition, perhaps it isn't. So does that mean, therefore, that you don't think seeking a UN Security Council resolution is the right way to go? I take you back to 2006 when you were Prime Minister. Israel was at war with Lebanon. Hamas had taken control of Gaza at that point. There was a 1701 UN Security Council resolution at that point. It was good in theory, perhaps not in practice. So do you think Israel should still be striving for that? Or is it different this time around?
Let's again draw a distinction between Lebanon and Gaza. In Lebanon, the UN Security Council decided unanimously on the resolution 1701, which forced the Hezbollah to move away from the border with Israel. And they obliged because they had no chance, because we devastated them in the military confrontation which they started. So, and that held for 17 years until the last few weeks when they joined in and utilizing the weakness of the Israeli government to move forward to the border, and then some skirmishes occurred between us and them. Now they are also holding fire. But this is an issue which will have to be dealt with soon, after we are done with Gaza. In Gaza, we tried in 2008 in a custody operation to break the power of Hezbollah. We were very close to it. Unfortunately, it was at the end of my term. It was a few weeks before the elections. Unfortunately, most of the military and the establishment, the defense establishment of Israel was against continuing this military action, and we lost the opportunity then to break down the Hamas at a much less cost than it is now, and this was a terrible misdeed that I regret to this day. Afterwards, Netanyahu took over, and as I said, he preferred to deal with Hamas rather than to fight with Hamas, although he said that the first priority of his government will be to destroy Hamas, but practically he found all kinds of ways to help them, and he used the money from Qatar to finance them, and they used this money in order to build all the infrastructure, which is now we are fighting against.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Ehud, and I think it's lost in this debate, but still relevant, that there was a long time there where Bibi did support Hamas to be the security and political power in Gaza. But can I ask you about the current day? There is, before this war broke out, there was the so-called legal reforms that created a lot of social problems, a lot of protests there in Israel. At the time, you called for IDF reserves to refuse to serve. Many of them weren't willing to do that before the war broke out. And they didn't serve. They wouldn't serve under BB. Did that weaken your military? Did your calls weaken your military? And did perhaps Hamas see that weak point and attack?
No, I know that this is there is a temptation to use it, which is widely used by the supporters of Bibi, the few supporters he still has, in order to argue against the riots and the demonstrations which were held in Israel prior to this. No, the reason of the terrible disaster and the failure that took place on the 7th of October is one. This is not the weakness of our intelligence. We knew everything. I mean, this is so tragic. We knew everything.
But wasn't it like the Yom Kippur War where you knew everything, you just refused to believe it?
Yeah, it's the same reason. I'll say it in the most explicit way right away. Arrogance and overconfidence and complacency.
The military or Bibi?
The arrogance in 1973 was that after the Six-Day War, when we defeated all the Arab countries together, no one in Israel thought that the Arabs can recuperate and fight again. and we treated them with a certain disdain. How can they even threaten Israel? We will break their bonds. And it turned out that they surprised us, and it was a very tough and painful experience for us. And what happened now is similar. The arrogance of the governments of Netanyahu, he kept talking all the time about Hamas, and he said, who are they? We can break them. We can destroy them. They will never dare do anything because they are deterred. And it turned out that they were not deterred, and that they understood the weakness of Netanyahu, and they caught us in a total surprise. Not because we didn't know. We knew everything. We just didn't believe. I mean, the government didn't believe that the Hamas will do what they actually did, which was a very, very effective surprise attack that we were not prepared to at all. Although we knew all the preparations and we saw all the trainings and we saw everything that they were preparing, we just were not ready emotionally and mentally to assume that they can do what they did. Because we thought that we can do everything, because we are the startup nation, and because we are the sophisticated military power, and because we have tanks and planes and organized army, and they are a bunch of terrorists. So they proved that sometimes a bunch of terrorists can be very sophisticated, and they were. And this is a terrible disaster, because we could easily, had we had the soldiers waiting there in the border as they should, we would have stopped them. There was no problem doing it, except that we never believed that they will do what we saw that they are preparing to do.
Well, Ehud, there's a lot of ground we've covered this morning. There's so many more questions I'd like to ask you, but we'll have to leave it there for today, and I hope to have another conversation with you in the not too distant future. Thanks so much.
Anytime. Thank you very much.